I didn't know that every day after that would be worse. See, the judge, she sentenced him to incarceration, but TBCJ is sentencing him to death. I don't want my person to become another Lizzie. I don't want him to be another John. I want you to know that the people he served with in the military and the people he served with now, call him Delk. You guys have changed his name from offender to inmate, or maybe just 19 top. But for 40 years, he's been my person. And we've talked about the heat issue, and we've talked about what people say, what it's like. But I want you to hear what he told me when I asked him, how do you cool down? He said they take their shirts or their sheets at night and put them in the toilet so that they can get them wet and then lay in them. He said they used to take the water and put it on the ground so that they could lay in the water and cool down. But it's been so hot lately that that water evaporates right away. And if a guard finds him, they catch a case. 3 times he's already been to medical, and the nurse says you have to stay hydrated. So tell me, how do they do that? When they get water from the guards who don't want to give them water, or they're not enough, or they can buy them from commissary and stockpile. But his unit hasn't had commissary bags all summer long, so they can't carry them. And if they take their chain bags, they get another case. So they don't have that. I asked my husband to tell me about the hottest day he's ever had. And it wasn't at TBCJ. He said it was when he was serving in the Persian Gulf in Bahrain. And he said they would go outside to the ship, and they told the Navy people, the sailors, you have to keep walking, because if you stand still, your boots will melt. I asked him what was worse, and he said by far TBCJ, because at least on the ship you could breathe. I don't know what John did when he couldn't breathe anymore, or what Lizzie did when she couldn't breathe anymore, but I don't want Joe not to be able to breathe anymore. And I challenge all of you. Dr. Dominic said that she has a box that she brings. I just want you to sit in that box for 5 minutes and see if you can breathe. Because that's what it is. You're taking away their breath.
Ma'am, we really appreciate you being here today, and we appreciate your comments, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on my list, I've got Hillary Randall. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. My name is Hillary Randall, and I came today as a voice for the people who Texas Department of Criminal Justice has silenced. Though I'm fully aware these people are criminals who have done something along the way to get them there, they are still human beings. They deserve air conditioning, food for proper nutrition, hygiene, clothing, and bedding. The treatment they receive is inhumane, to say the least. They are living with roaches and rodents. These inmates are denied proper medical attention and mental health help. TBCJ does the bare minimum. Y'all wonder where the drugs are coming from, and you try to pin it on innocent people trying to properly support their loved one when it's your own staff bringing in the drugs. These inmates are dying at an alarming rate, 135 and counting since June 1st alone, one of which was my husband, Randy Butler, known to you as inmate 2324071, at Byrd Unit, June 20th, 2023. Most of your facilities are not providing proper care, and especially during the extreme heat we've been having. Unfortunately, I dealt with y'all for many years. In those many years, I've had to advocate for my husband because apparently his voice was not enough. Many of those times I had to resort to the ombudsman to actually get things accomplished due to wardens not doing their jobs properly by choice. And I say by choice because there's no reason why it couldn't have been handled in a more timely manner. We reached out for mental health help for my husband after his mom passed away many times. He was never taken seriously and was met with a very derogatory comment from one CO, of which I'm sure still works for y'all. Something has to be done about these conditions in which these men and women are being forced to live in. Basic human needs go beyond food and water. Restricting commissary to higher security levels is inhumane. They still deserve to access to food outside of the toddler-sized portions they are served. The trays on some units are left in heating carts that are unplugged, and by the time they reach the inmates, they are nasty and have a high chance of causing gastrointestinal issues. Necessary medical supplies should be allowed to be carried on their person during transport, because as of now, they are not. I was held hostage by our red unit for about an hour. This was during shift change. There were many of the staff coming in with solid colored backpacks, not having to go through the metal detectors, and just buzzed right in. That's how your drugs, phones, and other contraband is getting in. And I'm sure that you guys know that from the bust that just happened on May 28th of this year. When you know better, you do better. Do right by these human beings, because you are well aware of what is going on, and they have families to come home to. Me and my husband have 4 children together that have to live the rest of their life without their dad, one of which only ever got to hug him in a casket. I hope that you guys thoroughly listen to what is being said to y'all today, because it's not right. It's not right. I listened to my husband cry. I have letters upon letters upon letters of his step 1 grievances, his step 2 grievances on a riot that he was charged with, that he had nothing to do with, that your people would not red dot him and watch the tape to make sure that it was not him. He was G5'd for that for a whole year. 1 5-minute phone call every 90 days that he was allowed to have. Half of the time he couldn't even have his stationery with him because he was being transferred around so much. No contact with the outside world. That's inhumane, because it goes far beyond food and water. Their mental health has to be looked at as well.
Ma'am, we really appreciate you being here and sharing with us today. We really do.
Thank you.
Next on my list, I've got Kayla Green. Kayla Green? All right, we'll pass, and then we'll come back to Kayla if she comes back with us. Next on my list, I've got Jessica Dickerson. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. My name is Jessica Dickerson. I'm a board member with Texas Prison Community Advocates, and I'm wearing a button today that says I'm affected. And I've been sitting here listening to all of this and realizing that in this room every single person is affected. But outside of this room, in this state, every single person is affected by the decisions that are made in this space. 95% of Texas prisoners go home. But today we've had to hear about the ones who won't. And this is a fear that family members deal with every day. When you're trying to schedule visits to keep your people in air conditioning for 2 hours, and you can only do that when there's a space, and there are no spaces because it's so limited. When you have 128,777 people, according to LBB today, you don't have the room for what we can do to save our people. I plan to talk about mail and visitation and phone calls because my focus in the I'm Affected campaign is the fact that people go home, and how they go home matters to the greater community. It matters to the greater society in general. It's important that we send people home in a condition to be successful, not just for them, not just for their family, not just for their children. Disproportionate amount of children affected in this state by incarceration, generational problems from that, poverty, all kinds of things that exist. But my heart just keeps breaking for the burden that y'all must carry in making these decisions, because we live with this fear so continually. And I wanted to be more composed, but I can't be.
It's okay.
I can't be in what I'm hearing.
We appreciate your comments. We really do.
I obsessively check the weather. I take photographs of the heat index at my person's unit every day. And I worry constantly. And there are so many of us, 127,728,777 people, with how many people connected to them that spend all of their time worrying. Are they going to make it today? Will they make it to the end of their sentence? When they come home, will their mental health be so poor? Will their physical health be so poor? We have a massive increase in 55 and older. It's our fastest growing demographic. If we don't improve these conditions, not just the heat, but the food, the water, and mental health care, we're removing people from our system that are elderly and have been under these conditions for so long that their success is problematic on the outside. And like I said, I really did want to talk about. Dr. Spencer mentioned mental health, the male situation that does something to hinder mental health. I don't mind paying the cost of Securus phone calls, but God, I wish I could actually hear him when he calls. The static, the interruptions, constant disconnect. He tries 7 times and he can't get a phone call through.
Yes, ma'am. If you could wrap up your comments, we really
That's
appreciate
it.
you.
I just want to say, when we weaken one, we weaken everybody. We weaken our whole society.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Next on my list, I have got Pamela Bryant. Ms. Bryant? Well, come on up. Come on up. Don't be nervous.
Jesus.
Don't be nervous.
Okay,
We're just human beings like you.
Okay.
We appreciate you. Come
okay,
on.
Don't start my 3 minutes yet. Let me get it together. Oh, Lord. Okay. Let me get these glasses. Oh, Lord. Okay. Let me give it to you. Okay. Hello. My name is Pamela Bryant with Walking. I'm the founder of Walking by Faith Prison Ministry. I am the founder. Okay. They say first, I want to start preaching. I'm going to tell y'all the truth. Hallelujah, but I can't do that. First of all, I would like to thank all of y'all for allowing my voice to be heard today. I come before you being a voice for the mental health. And then I'm not going to read the rest, because I just want to tell you how it's like a visit going to see my son that has no mental capacity. He already was mental ill before he caught the cases that landed him in prison. And I was so scared of my son, I had asked for so much help for him. I told him to take the 15 years that they gave. I am originally from Dallas, Texas. Mental illness run in my family. I had reached out. So now I'm visiting him, and he's into his 7-year sentence. So let me describe a visit. I drive from Austin, Texas, all the way 4.5 hours by myself for a 15 to 20-minute visit. As he watches every food I get, he's non-responsive. He'll talk or maybe give you a conversation for 7 minutes. I have been doing it for 7 years. When people see me come, they say stuff like, I could be almost late after the time frame. I say, I don't need number 15 minutes with him. That's all I need, just really to pray and watch him eat his food. I come before y'all today about the mental issues. Some of the officers and people are seeing that the mental people, they caught the cases and they're just pushing them into a wall. I just think that something has to be done about that. Just like the heat, just like everything else, I served my time. Thank you, Jesus, that I'm out. I made it through. And I go back into prison. I'm living out my past trauma, and I speak a lot. Most of these people know me in this room. But I am here to say, just ask God for each and every one of us to just be touched about what has been said. You know, when the lady said, Mr. Brown Color, the blood is on your hand, I said, no, the blood of Jesus is on his hands, because that's what I ask God for, all of us to just be touched about, not just go home and say, yeah, that lady was crying because her son died. You know, we live, we reap what we sow in. It could be your granddaughter, your daughter, because fentanyl is out there. Them drugs, opioid, they popping pills. And everything with the generation that's coming up behind us, they might be your grandchildren and grandchildren that might be out there in that heat, or your son and daughter. So don't get it twisted. We all can have enough money, but money can't stop you from going to prison. And your children will be in there hot too. Your children will be in there with mental issues too. And you'll be saying, well, what went wrong? My mama and grandmama and them said the same thing. They taught me right from wrong. I just did the wrong thing. And then you get in a predicament, and here we go. So I just ask for sympathy. If this is my first time coming down here, I got here at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I just want to thank Windham High School because I got my GED in prison. Now I work and have a nonprofit and for-profit, Pam's Way Kitchen. And I make over almost half of your salary with a GED. And I just want to be a witness to that. So I just want to say, I ain't coming here just do a whole lot of complaining and murmuring. I just want to encourage y'all, but I also want you to have empathy for the people that are out here. And we all drove from different areas. And thank y'all for letting me share.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. All right. Next I have on my list Grace Renee Nicholas. Thank you for being here, ma'am. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, Dr. Dominic told us to bring pictures, so I brought a picture of my son. This is his senior picture. He graduated, I think, number 3 in his class of, 500 or 1,000, because he switched schools. But anyway, he's very, very intelligent. Unfortunately, he also, here's a picture of him here, more recently. He also has a mental health issue, and he's got severe bipolar and possibly schizophrenia. They're still kind of trying to diagnose it, but he went to the Montfort unit to try and get some help once he was at the Smith unit, and he started having a lot of trouble, so he went to the Montfort unit, and he was severely and regularly abused, not by the other inmates, by the COs. And it went on with other people who were in there with him. They witnessed what was going on, and I called about it. I drove out there a 5.5 hours every weekend to let them know I knew what was going on with my son. I reached out to social media. I reached out to our senators, our representatives. I reached out to everyone I knew to reach out to at the staff at TBCJ to try and get some help. And thankfully, at one point, and Dr. Lithicum, thankfully, at one point, she decided that she would move him to the Jester 4 unit, thank God, and he is not abused there. But there is a lot going on at the Montfort unit that you all need to investigate, because it's very dangerous. And as a matter of fact, a man that he met there, he's since relocated, I believe, to the Clements unit. He told me that he'd had 4 of the cellmates that were around him commit suicide. This was 2 weeks ago. And I don't know if that was related to the heat or what was exactly going on in there, but I believe what he's telling me. There's no reason for him not to tell me the truth. But anyway, I just want to let you know there's some very, very, very serious issues in TBCJ, and it breaks all of our hearts because we're moms. We love them, we love our children. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Next on my list, I have, it's either Chivas or Levis Watson. Sorry, I couldn't read that handwriting very well, but we appreciate you being here.
It's all good. I'm sure you had Chevis and Scotch before. Give me a second. I'm Chevis Watson with Working Group 512 in Texas Prisons Community Advocates. I am a former inmate. I came here today with mothers from all over the state, mothers who long to talk to, meet with, and hug their sons and daughters. I came here today with men who I did not do my carceral stay with, but that know exactly what I've seen and I know what they've endured. I'd like the board to receive this. $85.7 million wouldn't have mitigated the horrible fire and outcome of evacuating 600 inmates this morning. $85.7 million ain't gonna do nothing with 11,000 beds. Y'all need to go back to the drawing board. Formerly of the Huntsville units myself, I can only imagine waking up in my sweat at 2 a.m. to a massive fire in the unit, in the absolute heat. Last night, I spoke with my brother who's been denied a shower since August 1st in the Michaels unit. I find what was reported earlier that TDCJ does all it can to mitigate the heat issues and care for their inmates, Ms. Johnson, to be untrue, highly untrue. Not with 135 plus inmates dead since June 1st. When I walked in today, I overheard Ms. Kinsing say that if you care about someone, leave them better than you found them. This was received with applause and even a photo afterwards. I couldn't help but wonder if what she said transcended over the educational element of Windham School District, like per se, if it meant anything to the guys in the Bird unit, or even the Michaels unit, the Darrington unit, the Lane Murray unit where the ladies are. As previously said, these units need an independent investigation that you all can observe as well as community stakeholders. I heard that a Mr. Fredericks challenges his students to be better. I couldn't help but consider if women at Lane Murray or guys at Darrington, if when a particular inmate arrives to the WIN unit, when they get into that program, do they ever achieve better, or is that all a disguise for social media? I'm grateful to hear of budget decisions that will be going to air condition. I'm grateful to hear of an external peer review within the department's auditing process, but truth is, how can we as community members ensure that we help you all ensure that the U.S. Constitution is upheld, which supersedes anything in the Texas Constitution? If the ability to access commissary is important to TDCJ, like what was said earlier, to another round of applause and photo op, then eliminate capitalism from within the retail industry and reduce cases of water back to reasonable cost. $7 is not reasonable to guys and gals that depend on their families to fund their inmates' accounts. These tears today that you've seen are real, and I'm sure y'all have them too on Christmas and New Year's, crying about all your memories. These are tears of moms and dads who have lost their people forever. I'll never forget the filthy water we had to drink in 2020. I'll never forget it. And when I came up for parole, I got those same eyes that you're giving me today, the eyes of white supremacy.
Sir.
These tears today are real. I'll never forget that filthy water, that coffee-colored water that we have to bathe and drink in. My client caught chained to Garza. My client caught chained to Garza in April. He passed out within the second.
Mr. Watson, we hear you. We hear you.
Please don't interrupt my speech. I came from
Sir.
I don't care. You all need to do something now. Bottom line.
Thank you, Mr. Watson. Next on my list, I have a Miss Cheryl Ballard. Miss Ballard?
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here.
I had practiced good morning, but it's afternoon now. Before I start, there are two things I wanted to say. About the digital mail, tablets are great. I am a professor and I teach online. I love it. But tablets can't handle the heat. That's something that's come up lately. But my comments actually deal with the Caulfield unit. Many inmates and family members have expressed concerns about issues with the administration at the Caulfield unit. The head warden has been on medical leave since the end of 2022. Because of this, TDCJ policies are not being followed, and there is a huge staff shortage. This unit is run like no other. It is a rogue unit. I-60s are not answered. This is not limited to any one department. It is unit-wide. Officers are rarely on the blocks with restrictive housing inmates. Inmates from general population actually perform the counts of restrictive housing inmates. Inmates are left in the day room for up to 5 to 7 hours. This is a non-cooled day room that they have no access to water or bathroom because those facilities are broken. Inmates requiring special diet food trays often do not get food trays at all. Mail is delivered not after 2 to 3 days according to TBCJ policy, but after 2 to 3 weeks. When mail is denied, it is very rare for an inmate to actually receive a denial form explaining why it was denied and an appeal form. Since March of 2023, we have tried to get these issues resolved at the unit level, but have been very unsuccessful. A few times the family liaison submitted I-60s on my behalf and on behalf of other inmates to departments including property, mail, maintenance, and Securus, and none of them have been responded to as of today, August 25th. I have tried to contact the regional director, Carol Monroe, in mid-July and in early August, and I have not yet heard back from his office. These circumstances are causing human rights issues which are resulting in negligence and ultimately have contributed at least partially to the death of Patrick Womack this past Monday between 2:30 and 3 o'clock p.m. when I was on the phone with my loved one and the SSI walked by my loved one's cell and said, "Oh my God, I wasn't prepared for that today." During the hottest part of the summer, Mr. Womack was in restrictive housing, which at Caulfield is a metal door that has sheet metal welded to prevent airflow. So those carefully placed fans that are talked about on the news do not go into the cells. Mr. Womack had sent numerous I-60s requesting to be issued an indigent fan. Unfortunately, I-60s are not answered at the Caulfield unit, and it was not an officer who found him, it was another inmate. In the few days since Patrick's death, there have been officers and medical staff on the block. So it's apparent that someone there actually understands what the job is of a TBCJ officer.
Ma'am, if you would please wrap up your comments, we'd appreciate it. You can finish up. You can finish up.
This type of treatment of people who will be released back into society is atrocious. And it's not hard to see how people reoffend when they're being treated like animals or worse within the walls of TBCJ. I hope we can do better. This is my home state, and I love it, and I don't plan on leaving.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Next on my list, I've got Savannah Eldridge. Thank you
Good
for being here.
afternoon, Chairman, members of the board, Director Collier. My name's Savannah Eldridge. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Be Frank for Justice, the board chair for Texas Incarcerated Families Association, and I serve as a spokesperson for family members. I have 3 loved ones who are currently incarcerated in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and there's been so many issues that have been spoken about here today. My main concern is the lack of transparency and the lack of clearance about what it means to file a grievance from the outside in. And so I know that we have the Office of Family Services, and they've done a really great job at trying to meet the needs and answer the calls. We have the ombudsman, but it's really unclear about how these 2 entities work together and where the starting point should really be. Regarding the heat, I mean, what else can we say? I personally, as a registered nurse and healthcare professional, believe that this is a crisis. We've been under a heat dome for 3 weeks, and I understand that some change has to be made, and I'm accepting of the incremental change that you guys have put forth here, but we need to do something today. People are dying, and we need to do what we have to do for the preservation of life. Also, directives are not being followed, which you've heard about that, but clean water is a necessity for health. Clean water is a necessity for health. People are not getting water, they're not getting cool water, and I mean, I could call out several units. You've heard from many of them today. I think that we need to make sure that the directives are actually being followed and implemented. And lastly, I want to say that the cost of incarceration cannot solely rest on family members. We are struggling to help provide for our loved ones on the outside, and I'm not just speaking for myself. I spend upward of $700 a month just to help with my loved ones, and it's putting a significant strain on us. I don't think that we should have to pay for water, even bottled water. I think we know right now that water is necessary. It should be free during the summer months, knowing that it's necessary and there's no AC. Why are we charging for water, period? It makes no sense. And the last thing is visitation. I've heard the change for the policy from offender to inmate. I'd like to challenge you to go further, because we know that language is powerful and it has an impact on how society treats our loved ones when they come home. These are residents of TBCJ and they're people, and I ask that we refer to them as such. And visitation, please expand it outside of weekends. There's just too many people. There's hundreds of people, over 100 people on All Red unit I know that they were trying to get in for visitation. And by the way, All Red's doing a great job. They are doing a good job. So I do want to elevate them on that. They're doing a great job, but we need to expand the days and the times for visitation, not just in person, but for the video visitation, because it is a necessity and it does improve outcomes. And if we know and believe that, and we are about rehabilitating and correcting people, then we need to make sure that we have that avenue to encourage them and make sure that they are, the family members are a part of their reentry and their rehabilitation.
Thank you, ma'am. We really appreciate your comments. Thank you. Next on my list, I've got Kyle Matthews. Mr. Matthews, thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyle Matthews, and I'm speaking on a different subject altogether. I was incarcerated in TBCJ. You heard, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I work with men and women through my company, the K. Matthews Group, that come home and suffer a lot of indignities, both real and imagined, from their stays of incarceration. And one of the areas that we've identified that a lot of people do not know until it's far too late, they don't have good credit scores. I bet every one of you have over 700 credit score, which means that you have access to loans. You can get business loans, you can get homes, you can get vehicles, and you can get housing. A lot of individuals leave prison not knowing how the credit system works. They don't know that they can be discriminated against, not illegally, but almost morally, for having just a terrible credit score. Now, how they got that bad credit score is, one, they spent a lot of time incarcerated, there was nothing being reported, and two, their family members started putting bills in their names. I just talked to a young man last week. He's over $25,000 in debt that interest accrued during the course of his incarceration, and he broke down crying and said, I can't pay that. He's in fear that he will forever be stuck in low-paying jobs, because the programming is fine. It's how it's utilized once men and women are leaving prison. I propose that we have a program in place for financial education that strictly speaks on the credit aspect of financial education, because budgeting is good. We all need to know how to budget. We all need to know how to save. But if people don't understand why they're not getting jobs in certain arenas because of their credit score, they're not being promoted in certain jobs of their credit score, I don't want to be a victim. I work with people who have very violent past. I'm not afraid of them, but I don't want to be victimized. I don't want anyone in society to be victimized because they just ran out of hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you. Next on my list, I've got Francis Vaughn.
Mr. Chairman, sir, are you recommending that we do some type of education in terms of credit repair? Financial planning, is that what you're asking? you asking us to try to incorporate that credit education?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But also, if I can just take a few
Oh,
seconds.
of course.
But also, let those of us, there are many men and women in society who've been through what a lot of people are going through, and they're a lot more receptive to what we can offer. And we want to work with, not against. And it's just, it's hard for some people. It's very hard because we understand the institution doesn't pay. So if you can't pay your debts down or you can't do anything out, with that, there has to be an alternative solution, because I don't want to focus on just the problem. I want to be a solution-based individual.
Would you talk to me afterwards and so I can get a little more information?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next on my list is Frances Vaughn. Ms. Vaughn, if you'd come up, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Congratulations and welcome to the new members, and good to see the rest of you familiar faces again. What I want to talk on today is a grassroots effort of a field minister at the Memorial Unit, a program that he's devised that he calls the Grindstone. And I'm going to read from something, all of this is what he gave me.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a grindstone. It'll sharpen you up or it'll dull you down. It all depends on what you're made of. And he's quoting his grandfather, and that's kind of who he's modeled this program from. Excuse me. And he focuses on the inmates that are in SEG, and they have a mind, body, and soul approach to this program. And they go out there, even in the heat of this summer, they go out and they have these workout challenges, and they are intensive workouts. They do a little bit of education to them. They talk about their experiences. They have a musical element to it. And not too long ago, I saw on Facebook a musical ministry that's going on at Hughes Unit. And so that made me think I want to bring what Chad Carney has going on there at Memorial. And I encourage y'all to go check it out sometime. They'd be happy to have you. And to Pastor Sprinkle, they're excited that you're in their neighborhood and hope you'll come to the Bible college there soon. And I'll leave this with Jill because it's all Chad's information that he put together, and I'm just bringing it forward.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And please, yes, do leave that with Ms. Durst.
Okay,
Appreciate
thanks.
that. All right, next on my list, I've got Gloria Ruback. Ms. Ruback? Mr. Ruback, we appreciate your being here.
Thank you. You know, I'm looking at my phone right now. It's 105 degrees in Huntsville, and it says excessive heat warning. I think there's 7 prisons in Huntsville, and then you go a little farther north and there's more. This is what's going on. People are dying every day. And I didn't really want to come talk about the heat because I know we're all aware of it, and it ain't going to get any better. I'm going to talk fast because I'm mad, and I've got 6 things I want to bring up. Number 1, at the Polinsky unit where my son is, Building 12 houses 100 or solitary or whatever nice word you're changing it to. When they need to go to medical, whether it's to Huntsville to get glasses or they're going to Galveston for surgery, if you're in Building 12, there's no handicap accessible van like there is for the other buildings at Polinsky. I want to know why. And the people that are in wheelchairs there who can't get on the regular van, they tell them, get in any way you can. If not, you're refusing to go and you won't be treated. That's wrong. Number 2, last year when I was here, when y'all had your meeting here in August, I talked to you about diabetes because my son's diabetic, and I know a lot about it because I am. White bread, white rice, white potatoes, this is what you do not eat. I was upset because I would have been calling 911 if my blood sugar readings were as high as my son's. Y'all don't want to pay for the insulin that the doctor at UTMB said he needed. It costs too much. Well, a year later, he now has stage 2 kidney disease, so thanks. Number 3, last Thursday when I was visiting at Polonsky, we're eating on one side and the incarcerated people on the other side. Both sides, they're exterminating and they're spraying God knows what as we're eating. They need to do that when there's not people having visits. Next, on A pod in Building 12 at Polonsky, there's a horrible infestation of ants. And it's been in the news lately. I live in Houston. I got ants all over my yard. I sit out on my swing and they start crawling up my leg. But anyway, A pod Building 12 somebody needs to figure out how to get rid of the ants. My son said he can put Vaseline around the perimeter or whatever, and he can keep them out. I don't know, but that's a problem. Number 5 is water. Water should be free. I've gotten mail from guys, particularly in the old units down Darrington, Ramsey, and on down south. Those water pipes are older than God. One guy said he cuts up his sheet and makes a filter to put on his faucet, and the stuff that comes out of that faucet is unbelievable.
Ms. Rubeck, if you, I know you got number 6.
Okay, I got one more thing.
Yes, ma'am.
But you shouldn't have approved that contract with, was it Royal Pacific International. I can go buy a case of water for $2 something at the grocery store. $7 and something? No, that's criminal. Last point, solitary confinement has been declared torture by the United Nations, by psychiatrists and psychologists. Why is every single person on death row in solitary permanently? Not if they're in trouble, but permanently. That's torture and that's wrong. It's got to stop.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Okay.
Next, I have on my list Catherine Bonin.
I came here to talk about the heat, and many people have already done that much better than I could. So I'm going to talk about the fact that the department that you oversee denies that there have been any heat-related deaths in the past several years. And that is absolutely absurd. July was the hottest month in recorded history. Climate scientists say it was the hottest month in likely about 120,000 years. The pigs that are raised by the prison system have air conditioning, but incarcerated people do not. And not only are you denying that, you're denying that there have been any heat-related deaths, even though any doctor will tell you that heart-related deaths go up during any heat wave, and there have been dozens and dozens of people dying, including people in their 20s and 30s during this heat wave in your prisons. And usually it's impossible to prove definitively whether a death is heat-related or not, but even in cases where a death has been declared heat-related, as in the case of Robert Robinson in 2018, you're department still denies the doctor's findings. Not to mention, more heat-related illnesses have been recorded among staff than incarcerated people, even though staff members are free to leave whenever they choose, and incarcerated people are not. That makes no sense. There is a discrepancy there. It is not realistic. That means there are countless cases of heat-related illnesses that are going unrecorded. This kind of thing needs to be acknowledged so that, because I understand that it's the legislature who has the power to allocate a budget for air conditioning, but when your department is denying that people are dying from this heat, that is contributing to the problem, and that is not going to get the legislature to allocate the budget that is clearly needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate you. Next on my list, I've got Sister Mama Sonyis.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and it's Sister Mama Sanya.
Sanya.
My country, tears of weeps, a land of gross inequity, of thee we sing. In TDC, where our fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters are crying. In TDC, where our fathers, mothers, sisters are dying. From every corner of TDC, will humane treatment ever be? As a sister of a certain age, I come to speak on the ramifications of the Texas heat. I have no one in the system, nor have I ever been in the system. But when one of my brothers and sisters are hurting, we all are hurting. We have heard during the budgetary reports that all units eventually will have air. Eventually, really? This is not a new problem, yet it's taken so long it seems as if you don't really care. In 1954, the Brown v. Board of Education case, which integrated our schools, they said, with all deliberate speed, but look how long it's been taking. In comparison, will the inhumane living conditions and inhabitable conditions for our sisters and brothers be more state-sanctioned killings in the making? 10 years is a long time to bake inside the walls. For the inmates, workers, and everyone there should be relief for all. I wonder how many more will succumb to the deadly Texas heat. In Houston last week, 117 was how it felt. Before the uninhabitable becomes habitable, because only with air, the heinous living conditions will be beat. All human beings deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Article 1, Section 13 of the Texas Constitution mandates there should be no cruel nor unusual punishment. That's also stated in the United States Constitution, which supersedes all of that. I submit that the uninhabitable environment, i.e. lack of air conditioning in the Constitution, is an infliction of cruel and unusual punishment. Therefore, act with due diligence, speed up the process, and put these heinous conditions to rest. I can imagine, I'm a woman of a certain age, so I get hot real easily. So I can imagine baking, I'm gonna say it again, there are baking in those walls. We used to go into the prisons and I would do HIV, we would do HIV prevention. And it would be so hot, we couldn't even go in the summertime. We would only go when it was cold. So all I asked was one question: will humane treatment ever be?
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you. Next on my list, I've got Yancy Balderas. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Dear board members, thank you so much for this time and your attention. Last time I was here, I requested this board to look into providing mental health services more at the Pulaski unit to especially people on death row, people on administrative segregation. We're still waiting. Unfortunately, presently, there's still no adequate mental health services to prevent further mental deterioration of people living almost 24/7 in those cells. I pray you all can make the change in considering solitary confinement. Decades in solitary confinements without proper mental health services, it's mental torture, and it's hard for family members, for staff, for others seeing those things happening around. It's just not. Warden Dickerson took initiative, constructive steps were taking, allowing religious services. I was so thankful for Mr. Warden Dickerson. Unfortunately, he got promoted. He's not there no more. We're gonna miss him because he was doing so good. Now, like other administrations I've observed, things are kind of falling back. And that's what happens. Many times I've observed in the 9 years that we've been there, good wardens do a good job, and then they get moved, promoted, good for them, but then we fall back, and that's what's happening. Unfortunately, under this new wardenship, communication has fallen back and needs to be revived to the same level or better. Presently, communication between family members and administration is almost non-existent. I wanted to get in touch with the warden to address one issue. Unfortunately, after a few attempts in several weeks, I've been unsuccessful. I even went yesterday to the office to try again, just to bring to attention, because I would like to bring anything that's not happening, bring it to the attention so we could work better, so it could be better for everyone. And that's why I went, and still, no warden around, no one called me back. So that wasn't like that when Mr. Dickerson was there. Warden Dickerson was there. Warden Dickerson, his office was always open for us family, and we'll miss that. And we just want for the good work to continue at the Pulaski, not fall back.
Thank you, Ms. Balderas. We really appreciate you being here today. Next on my list, I've got Lisa Rodriguez Malguin. Molguin? Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Lisa Rodriguez Holguin. I come to you with 33 years of experience as being a criminal justice practitioner. I have taught criminal justice. I have a master's in criminal justice. As a professional, I've gone to prison tours, male and female. I now find myself with a daughter who's incarcerated. As a practitioner, I know the challenge that our system faces: shortage of staff, shortage of funding, lack of training. I recently have met with many parents, former incarcerated and incarcerated, and I'll be honest, I was blindsided. I have learned that the conditions don't reflect what I was teaching, which was that prisons were providing humane conditions, which consisted of sustainable meals, adequate living conditions, providing health care, and basic water needs. I now know that all this was false. I have learned that Texas inmates are living in inhumane and horrible conditions and not having their basic needs met. This is clearly a violation of our 8th Amendment. I'm a firm believer and I'm invested in this criminal justice system. I've got 33 years in here. I believe in accountability, I believe in rehabilitation, and I've witnessed many success stories. But I've also witnessed many men and women who come out with post-traumatic stress disorders and other mental health disorders because of the situations they've been endured to live with while incarcerated. Recently, I had the opportunity to meet with some students that had graduated, and I asked them, what do you want to do with your life? Go into corrections. You know, right now, it's a great time to go into the field. And I was met with, no way, I'm not going to go there. It's horrible there. It's hot there. People are dying there. And I was taken back, and I was like, well, can you give me some reasons, other reasons why you wouldn't want to go? Well, it's inhumane. And I was like, wow, this new generation that's coming up, we need to motivate them, and we need to educate them, and we need for them to want to work in this system to help people. I'm proud to be a criminal justice practitioner. I'm proud of the work I've done in the communities. I'm proud of the people that I worked with. My challenge to the board is, how do we create a positive change in the system that treats inmates with humanity and gets their basic needs met while benefiting the TBCJ employees, allowing them to have less stress and better work conditions? One goal is to decrease recidivism and continue rehabilitation efforts in the prison without poor living conditions. I hope that each of you consider everything that you've heard today. Your leadership can make a positive change in this system and fix what is broken. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your comments. We appreciate you. Next on my list is Regina Mullis. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me. I come today, I didn't want to come today, but I have a son that's incarcerated at the Bird Unit, and I understand it was just recently reaccredited. I don't see how, with no AC. Inmates are dying. There was one that just died there about 3 weeks ago, I believe, a young man in his 20s. But this money that y'all have put aside, these audits, these 60,000. We're depriving our inmates of their constitutional rights, their human dignity, and they're actually getting suicidal thoughts. I have I have actually 3 terrifying letters from my son. One to his dad, one to his girlfriend, and one to me. And it's, "Dear Dad, I'm literally baking in a hot oven. The heat is taking a toll on me for real." And he scratched out the word suicidal. And he put pain and torture. And to be honest with you, I believe our governor appointed all of you, and I thank him for that. But what I don't thank him for is, I believe he's brought back modern-day slavery. He's making slaves of our inmates. The ones in East Texas are having to build the wires that are for the buoys in the river. In federal waters. There's a big lawsuit about that. Okay? Governor Abbott does not need to be reelected if he cannot address this situation. It's been going on for years. I'm mad. I'm tired of it. I want my son to come home alive. He's 33 years old. He caught a 6-year sentence, and we look for him to be able to be eligible for probation here in the next 8 months. Thanks God for the judge for that. And he's got a little 2-year-old girl to come home to and a whole family that loves him more than anything. But people are dying. The state of Texas is complicit. We are a punitive state, punitive. It's like our inmates are just put aside. I mean, if an animal's left out in the heat, they close down that animal shelter. The person that left that animal out there gets put in jail. But yet our inmates are in there suffering in 115 to 135 degree cells. I mean, It's inhumane. We've had that word said several times today, and I don't like repeating things, but you know, the other day I called for a welfare check. Last week and this week, and the lady that answered the phone, I'm not going to call her a lady. I think I should call her an animal. She told me.
Miss Mullis,
Okay.
I think we need to wrap up your comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I called for a welfare check, and she told me that if there's nobody in the hospital, then everybody here is okay. And I said, no, ma'am, that's not a welfare check. And then so she transferred me to somebody else, and they filled out the form. Ended up having to talk to the chaplain. We can't get anything done.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your time, appreciate your comments here today.
Okay. I want my son to come home alive. Okay? And that's y'all's duty. That's y'all's duty.
Thank you, ma'am. Next on my list, I've got Lee Greenwood Rollins. Lee Greenwood Rollins. I'll put that card aside. Oh, coming. Oh, she's coming. Thank you for coming here today.
Thank you for your indulgence. To Chairman Nichols and the rest of the board, I came not prepared to speak today, but several persons thought I should. I spent 25 years on death row, literally. My son did. I'm still a bit angry about that. He's been gone 16 years now, and the board that was sitting then could have saved his life. He was incarcerated at 18 for a crime he did not commit out of Harris County, and the board could have corrected that, but they did not. After 25 years, they killed him at 45. I said that to say this. The years that he was there, the heat problem was there. So as the lady said before me, it's not a new problem. And I understand that part of you are new board members. If you can make a difference, and I know that you can, you should. The very first inmate that was exonerated off of death row, the death penalty should have been abolished. We should not be at 165 or so now. The conditions that are being spoke about here today should not have to be spoken about in a meeting such as this. I see mothers, I see fathers, clergy, and just plain human beings. Texas is a great state. I was born in Texas, I grew up in Texas, but I've lived in other states that treat their residents better than we do. It should not be. There are things, all of these inadequacies in the prisons, the other boards that preceded you have to have known about them. I venture to say, how do you sleep at night? How did those people sleep at night? Did they have children? Did they have brothers? Did they have sisters? We should not have to go over these things. We should not have to address issues of clean water. Yes, there has to be law, and there has to be punishment, but there has to be humane punishment. There has to be things within our system, which is very much flawed, that administers punishment for crimes that are committed, but it has to be humane. I implore you today, if you're a new board member, do what you can do. Do not act in maybe what the law has taught you to do, but what human rights and human moral feelings, moral fortitude a sense of God has taught you to do. And I assure you that we will have a great state then.
Thank you,
you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you. Next on my list is Kent Whitaker. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Before I begin, I want to say thank you so much to the panel for being here. It's obviously a very important relief valve for those of us who have an opportunity once or twice a year to speak to someone who actually has the ability to make a change. And I'm so grateful for that. Now, you all have a copy of my comments in your file somewhere, but I'm going to change it a little bit because I didn't realize that Mr. Collier would be here, and that encourages me greatly. I'm so glad that you are here because, anyway, it's just a possibility that we could actually resolve the issue that I'm facing with today. Most of the things that you deal with, or you've heard today, are issues that are huge, and mine's a single one. And so let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm Kent Whitaker from Sugar Land, Texas, and I am the only surviving victim of a double murder in 2003, which was orchestrated by my son. He was convicted in 2007 and sentenced to death. He spent 11 years in ADSEG on death row, during which he led an exemplary life. 3 death row guards wrote letters asking for his commutation. 2 days before his scheduled execution in February of 2018, the Pardons and Parole Board, for the first time ever in the history of Texas, voted unanimously to recommend commutation to life in prison. Their votes were based on all of the positive changes that he'd made in his life since conviction, including getting a bachelor's and then a master's from Cal State. It's been 5.5 years since his commutation, and he's still in ADSEG, still in segregation. This is not the result of gang membership, an escape attempt, drugs, violence, or disciplinary issues. He's a peaceful person and is not asking for more than was told would come. One day after his commutation, the warden at Walls said that he would be moved to G2 and placed in general population. Since then, wardens and majors have tried unsuccessfully to get him out of solitary, but say that there's a tag in his file that says no one from the unit level can change his status. Specifically, they report that only the executive director's office can make that change. People from multiple classification hearings who are supposed to have the ultimate decision in these matters have expressed surprise that he's still in ADSEG and promised to change it, but nothing happens. Now, everyone in this room believes in the goals of TBCJ. I know I certainly do. But I'm here because the system hasn't worked. We've done everything we can within the system, but have been unsuccessful in clearing up this mystery. Chief of Staff Jason Clark graciously has spoken to me multiple times and promised an investigation and explanation, but there's been nothing forthcoming. Our attorney tried unsuccessfully to reach Mr. Collier directly. This should be an easy thing for you guys to confirm. Somebody here is bound to have a computer and access to inmate files.
Mr. Whitaker, if you could wrap up your comments,
I
we
will.
appreciate it.
If there is a secret tag, something outside TC guidelines limiting his reclassification, I just would ask how we could clear that up and find out why it's there. And if there isn't a tag, find out specifically what it is that's keeping him in solitary 5.5 years after he should be in general population. And I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you for being here, sir. We appreciate you. Next on my list is Danielle Allen. Okay, it's okay. We'll wait. Take your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I am Danielle Allen. I'm with the Prison Show, and I'm also a member of the Texas Death Row Angels, we help a lot of the death row men and women and also general population with legal matters. As you well know, or you should know, a lot of the men and women have issues with their state-appointed attorneys giving them mail, their legal mail, which they should have every right to have. Well, and Linda and I, along with the prison show members, would mail we would download it and mail it to them on our own dime. We would download it. Well, with the digital mail, we can't do that anymore. And it's made it impossible for us to do that. So the men on death row and the women, we have more men, so we're dealing with the legal mail for the men more. We have a lot of legal mail that they're not getting from their attorneys. The attorneys, one way or another, they just don't see the need to mail it to them. So they're going without. So that's one thing I wanted to let y'all know. I know that there's a few people that have talked about the digital mail, but that's another aspect of it, legal mail. And several of the GP guys have written to us also stating when they file, they have to have like 3 or 4 copies of things, and we would mail that in for them. Well, they can't get that anymore. They can't get those copies. And some of them are mailing it pro se, they're filing it pro se. So that pretty much nixes that for them completely. So keep that in mind. And then when in the heat, I have several friends whose tablets have completely shut down and look up things for their legal, and they have deadlines. And Securus, the people dealing with Securus on the units, I know the Stevenson unit, the lady or man, I don't know if it was a lady or a man, but they go like once every 2 or 3 weeks. So someone dealing with a legal matter, if they're only going every 2 or 3 weeks and their tablet is out, which my friend's was, they're out of luck. And if you miss a deadline, you miss a deadline. I mean, there's no, you can't make that up. So I think that there's a few things, I don't know who came up with the digital mail, or I understand why digital mail was implemented, but there's so many. And the photos, another thing with the photos, one of my friends who was transferred from the Estelle unit to Stiles, and none of his photos transferred with the tablet. Like but they took his tablet at the Estelle unit. He got a new one when he went to Stiles.
Yes, ma'am. If you could wrap up your comments.
I can't complain more? You won't let me?
We have to respect everyone.
I know.
And 3 minutes is kind of the rule.
Keep that in mind with maybe something can be done about that, like legal paperwork.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you. Next on my list, I've got Joy McFadden. Joy McFadden?
She's slow too.
Okay. Take your time. We appreciate you being here.
My brain also doesn't work very good, so it doesn't connect sometimes, so just bear with me.
Well, glad you're here.
All right, so I have a couple things. Death row. Inmates, the phones specifically, the tablets, they only have 10 people on their list for death row. Of that 10 people, it makes it very difficult because a lot of them have overseas people, And the overseas people, they don't want to take them off their list, or their visitor list, because the people that are on their phone list have to be on their visit list, right? The overseas people come to visit, so they don't want to take them off their list, but they can't call them. So therefore, they're taking up space. Essentially, it makes it so that they have nobody to talk to. It makes it so that there's nobody literally for them to talk to. Yet ADSEG has 20 on their list, and it doesn't make sense. You know, it makes no sense whatsoever. So if ADSEG can have 20, why can Death Row only have 10? It's redundant. Also, video visits for people that are indigent, families that are indigent, that are elderly, that are maybe perhaps coming from a long distance. Is it possible that they could have video visits maybe once a month for these families that can't, like, say, elderly that are coming from the valley that can't afford to? Can we set up a video visit for death row inmates? I know that there's one family in particular that I know of for sure. They haven't seen their son in years, and they just live in Houston, but the mother she only lives on $800 a month, and she can't make the trip from Houston to Pulaski, and because she has to put money in his account, and there's nothing left over, you know. And so a video visit, just one video visit a month, you know, for a mama is everything, you know. Is just something that we can do like that, just for indigent or, you know, these inmates. Let me see, what else was it? Minister visit. The spiritual advisors, they are already vetted. Can they be added? Because this, I think, is such a crucial thing, and not have them be listed as a part of their person on their call list as, you know, an essential, like an additional person. This is so good, because it provides someone for, like, have their number listed with TDCJ, like have every person list their spiritual advisor, but have it so that the spiritual advisor is someone that they can call should they need. It's like a reach out person, you know. They're trapped in their cell every day, all day long. It gives them someone to be able to reach out to.
Thank you.
You know, it's a good for, like, suicide or whatnot, you know, suicide prevention, because I know that they're big on that right now.
We appreciate your being here. We appreciate your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm going to call this card. I don't think we had Miss Kayla Green. Kayla Green? Okay. Without Ms. Green being here, I think we have come to the end of our public comment period. We want to thank all of you who have presented today. Your comments have been heard, noted, and recorded. Thank you all very, very much for exercising your rights as citizens and being here. And I would like to thank all of you for being here today. The next meeting of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice will be Friday, October 13th, 2023 in Austin, Texas. The board will reconvene at 3:30 p.m. to conduct executive session, which is closed to the public in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.074. Executive session will be conducted in the executive boardroom. The 230th meeting of the Texas Board of Criminal Justice is now in recess. It is 3:22 p.m.